Welcome. This is the Lifetime Cash Flow Through Real Estate Investing podcast. This is where you'll learn strategies to help you achieve lifetime financial freedom through real estate investment. Your host, Rod Khleif, has owned over 2,000 homes and apartments, and he brings experts in all aspects of real estate investment and management onto the show. Now, here's your host, Rod Khleif.
A couple of quick things. We are now at over 1.3 million downloads for this podcast, and it just continues to grow. And I just want to say thank you sincerely. Every day, it seems like I get an email or a handwritten thank you card from someone. I've even got this bulletin board in my house where I put them on the wall, and all I can say is thank you sincerely. Now, I've spoken with or communicated with close to 1,000 of you, and adding value to you guys has honestly made me reconsider my own mission and purpose in life. Now, many of you have asked me for coaching or mentoring or to create a course or some training materials. And I want you to know I've never started this podcast with the intent to do that. But after so many of you have asked me for it, and I've gotten so much pleasure out of it and gratitude out of it, I finally decided to go ahead and do it. And in a few weeks, I'm launching an awesome course and coaching program. You know, my goal is to shorten the learning curve for you guys and help you crush it in your lives and in this business and build your own lifetime cash flow. Now, if you want to get some information on my course and coaching when it becomes available, text the word CRUSH, C-R-U-S-H, to 41411. Also want to mention my book is still free, not much longer. I know I've been saying it, but it is done. It is getting the final editing done right now. Then it's going on Amazon. I'm have to charge for it. But every review I've gotten for that book has been fantastic. It's 200 pages. If you haven't gotten a copy, you must get it, because it's really going to add value to you. So just text the word ROD to 41411, or you can even go to my website, rodkhleif.com, KHLEIF.com, and direct download it there. Now, lastly, I have a favor to ask you. If you're getting value from this podcast, if you feel like I'm adding value to you, I would be very grateful if you took literally 2 minutes, went to iTunes and left me a 5-star rating and review. And the reason being is it makes a huge difference in our ranking and our ability to get great people for me to interview. So I want to thank you in advance if you do that for me. All right, let's get to it. Welcome to another edition of How to Build Lifetime Cash Flow Through Real Estate Investing. I'm Rod Khleif, and I'm thrilled you're here. And today we have a rare treat. I will tell you, the man we're interviewing today is one of my best friends. He is the guy that got me into podcasting, actually, and I kind of gave him a hard time about it when he got started. We actually have worked together, and we were working together when he got started, and he has just built something extraordinary. He's got 2 of the top-ranked podcasts on iTunes, Real Estate Investing for Cash Flow, and his name is Kevin Bupp, and his other one is MHP Academy. I'm sorry. Is that what it's called?
It's the Mobile Home Park Investing Podcast.
Mobile Home Park Investing Podcast. So he's got one specific to mobile home parks and one for commercial real estate. And they're both top ranked. Kevin, welcome on the show, buddy.
Thanks, Rod. Thanks for having me, man. Looking forward to it. This is long overdue, right?
Way overdue. So Kevin owns, he's involved in over 1,000 lots in mobile home parks, $12 to $14 million value, and adds a ton of value. And now he's got an incredible course and coaching program that he just rolled out. I want to introduce you a little more, Kevin, because I kind of got fumbled there when on the podcast names. But there are people in your life that you meet, and this is going to be a little gushy, but it's the truth, and I want people to hear this. There are people in your life that you meet that you realize have total integrity. And I can tell you in my life, I've only met 2 or 3 of those people, and Kevin is one of those people. So I want to throw that out there, number one. So I promise you that as we get into what Kevin offers and what he does, I give it my highest recommendation. But the bottom line is, Kevin and I worked together years ago. Kevin has gotten into the mobile home park space in a big way, but he's also done office buildings, land, and other real estate. We're very lucky to have him on the show. And today, we are going to talk about mobile home parks. We typically focus on apartment buildings and that portion of multifamily. I've been waiting to talk about mobile home parks. I am buying mobile home parks. I'm very interested in mobile home parks. Kevin and I collaborated in the mobile home park space years ago, and Kevin took it much further than I did. But I've been waiting to talk about this until I had Kevin on the show. So here you go, guys. You do not want to miss this episode. Trust me on that. So let's have you talk about your history and how this all came about. And then we'll get into the specific nuances of mobile home parks.
Sure. So going back to the, I guess, year of 1998 or 1999, I was 19 years old. So I think that would the right time frame. I got introduced to real estate, Rod, back then. And it was a unique situation because honestly, I had no interest in real estate. I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life at that point in time. And I don't know how much of this story you actually know of me. I don't know if you've ever heard like my real story of how I got introduced into real estate.
No,
so you're going to hear it now.
All right, good.
I was a really poor student in high school, just went to community college after high school, just having fun, tending bar, going to college, community college in a small town in Pennsylvania, and had no direction in life. Didn't really know what I wanted to do. Knew I didn't want to go away to school because I would have wasted my parents' money, and just, again, wasn't driven. Didn't really know what I wanted. Just want to have fun at that point. And was very lucky to have someone come into my life just unexpectedly. It was a girl I was dating. Her mother had recently been divorced. She started dating a gentleman. He ended up being a local real estate investor. He was, 20 years my senior. And somehow, long story short, I had a boat at the time. And during one summer day, I got stuck out on my boat with this guy. And it was supposed to be a group of us. And I felt bad. I invited him out in the boat, and I got stuck out in the boat with the old guy. And we just, we hit it off. We formed a great relationship, found out what he did. Much more in depth. And I think he maybe saw like a struggling 19-year-old kid. I didn't think I was struggling at that time, but in his eyes, like this kid needed to figure something out with life. And he introduced me to real estate. He invited me to a Ron LeGrand boot camp. And
that's really funny.
Yeah. In Philadelphia. And you know Ron LeGrand.
Ron has stayed at my house.
Yeah.
I mean, I know Ron quite well. He's a character.
But I went to this boot camp to learn how to fix and flip homes, and spent 3 days there in Philadelphia. And after I left there, I realized that there's about 20 people that I had interacted with during my time there, out of the few hundred that were there. And every single one of them were doing deals. And if they could do it, I can do it. I don't know how to do it yet, but I can figure out how to do this. And so that was really my entry into real estate. And I followed this individual around, David was his name. I followed him around literally for a year. Went to his house, followed him to real estate appointments, followed him to his rehabs he was working on, followed him to collect rents, sat in his home office when I wasn't in school or wasn't attending bar.
Where was this?
Where was this? In Pennsylvania.
Okay, still in Pennsylvania. Okay, I know that's where you're from. Okay.
Yeah. So I ended up doing a few deals up in Pennsylvania, bought a few really low-end row homes in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Really rough areas, didn't really know too much. He kind of guided me, but I probably wouldn't buy those properties again to save my life. But
sure.
I learned a lot, cut my teeth, and moved down to Florida when I was 22. And Rod, that's when I met you, and moved down here and jumped back into it. Opened up a mortgage company at that same time, met you, started buying real estate. And that led us all the way up to the crash, right? I mean, 2007, 2008, where basically the world ended for us.
And, it did. And we were on that same sinking boat. Trust me.
It was a really challenging time. And I took a few years away from real estate and focused on a few other business ventures that revolved around health and fitness, which I'm a huge fan of. And just really didn't want to think anything about real estate for a number of years because I didn't think that there was much money to make at that point in time. And I just really didn't want to give it any effort because it had drained my credit, ruined me financially. And now I look backward, I wish I would have dove back in right away.
Oh, trust me, we have the same feeling, buddy.
It will never happen again. Not a second time around for me.
No, because it was an opportunity. But when you go through that, you're in such fear and stress and lack, and your focus is diluted, and you're thinking about how bad things are. It's difficult to push forward when it would have been the best time to push forward.
I know.
But hindsight's 20/20. I was the same way. I got into completely unrelated business. Luckily, it grew into something great, but I didn't and don't love it. And so same. Yeah. So please continue.
There's a lesson there though, because if you can get really good in the type of market that we're in right now, if you can get really good at finding deals and uncovering good opportunities, whether they're on market or off market, we specialize in off market deals, but if you can get really good at it in a really tight market like we're in today, you can clean up shop. Right. When we go into another downturn.
When it gets tough. Yeah,
Absolutely.
No question. If you're able to find deals in this market, then you can clean up. And I know your course is really groundbreaking on that subject. But anyway, continue.
Yeah. So, moving forward, as I went into like a rebuild stage, I know Rod, you and I had started brainstorming about real estate at, 2010, 2011. And the interesting thing is you had brought up mobile home parks to me. And it was kind of ironic because I had purchased, I was kind of researching myself, and I had purchased Frank and Dave's the online or the home study course probably 8 or 9 months before you had kind of brought it to my attention, like, hey, how about mobile home parks? And so that was
we attended that course together later on. We both attended live events. So I went to a couple of them.
That was it. I mean, that was the introduction to real estate or to the mobile home parks for me. And I think there was just a lot of things that were unique about mobile home parks that piqued my interest. You know, when you start comparing them to like apartment buildings or single family homes, which I would never buy again, except it's my own residence. So here we are today, however many years, 6 years later, we're buying mobile home parks full time. That's all we do. That's all we focus in. I have bought a few other types of properties over the past, I guess, 5 or so years, but mobile home parks are the focus, 100%. I think that they are hands down, my biased opinion, the best type of commercial real estate that you can invest in. They've got the best returns, and there's limited supplies and barriers to entry, and just the pros go on and on and on about why.
And I don't disagree with anything you just said, with the caveat that there are some great apartment deals out there too. But I will tell you that I'm looking at mobile home parks. We are honing mailing lists and mailing mobile home parks. And that's why I wanted to have you on the show so we could talk about it and introduce people to you and what you've got going on. So let's get into some questions, some details, because I know my listeners are going to have questions because this is kind of new ground. So why do you like mobile home parks versus apartments? And I'm not gonna let you beat up apartments too bad, but
no, I have nothing against apartments. I think apartments are wonderful, and in today's there's a deal everywhere. So please take what I'm going to say with a grain of salt, because there's always an opportunity out there.
Sure.
I don't care how tight the market is. I don't care how compressed cap rates are in multifamily. There are opportunities everywhere. You just got to lift up heavier rocks to find them, right? You got to dig a little deeper to find them.
No, you have to. You have to do what other people aren't willing to do. I mean, a couple of my students literally hand-mailed 300 letters, and they just created $10,000 a month in cash flow. So, I mean, if you're willing to do what other people aren't willing to do, and I know that's what you talk about in your stuff.
It's all timing. Honestly, it's all timing. So we do a lot of off-market marketing, and I don't want to digress here too much, but it's really about getting your message, whatever that message is, a direct mail or a cold call. It's all about getting your message in front of that owner when they either need or want to sell. That's it. That's the magic part right there. They either need or want to sell. So you could send them 20 letters, call them 20 times. The 21st time could be it. And so you just got to keep your message in front of them. There's always opportunity because people run the situations in their life where they have to sell or they want to sell, many different reasons why. But so there's always opportunity out there. I don't care how tight the market is, how much competition there is.
That's right.
You got to be in front of the seller at the right time. That's
a lot of people don't pay attention to what's going on in the market. And there are deals in the hottest of markets. So, and I know a lot of you are scared because I talk about a contraction and Kiyosaki was just quoted saying it's already started. Another economist, Harry Dent, that I track, is saying it's already started. And that's okay because there are still deals and there are going to be incredible deals once it crashes again. So
that actually leads me into one of the reasons why I really like mobile home parks.
All right.
Yeah, it does. Because when we go into some of a downturn or recession where people might lose jobs, they might get wage cuts, there's a trickle down effect that happens in the affordability of living, where you can actually afford to live. And so let's talk about apartments. And I'm not going to beat up apartments, but it's just part of my example. A class can't afford to live in A class. You move to a B class. Can't afford a B class. Move to a C class. Can't afford a C class. Your option after that's a D class, which in my mind is like a war zone. You better be packing heat to go collect rent, right?
Right.
And so your option at that point in time is either go to an apartment building where your family is very unsafe, or for the same price point or potentially even less, you could probably live in a very safe, clean, quiet community, a mobile home park community, to where not only will you be basically paying the same price or maybe even less of what a D class low-end apartment would be, but in most mobile home parks, you have the ability now to become a homeowner, which is unheard of in the apartment space. I mean, you're never going to own the apartment space. You're just going to keep renting. And so, we offer a unique gift to those that are in seek of affordable housing. And so in my mind, if the economy goes down, we still have a huge demand because we got this pile of people that keep trickling down the ladder into mobile home parks. And then
I agree completely.
Mobile home parks, I don't know where the statistic came from. I can't really take it back anywhere and give you like the real source of it, but I've heard it many times in the industry from industry experts, is that during the time frame of 2008 and 2011, I think is when they measured it, mobile home parks at the lowest default rate of any commercial asset type.
I've read
And
that
so,
somewhere too. I remember seeing that as well.
I wish I had the
myself.
source, but I just don't. But I've heard enough industry experts say it, and I believe it. So
Right.
when the market's good, there's still a need for affordable housing. When the market's bad, there's even more of a need for
There
affordable
will
housing.
always be a need for affordable housing, which, and there affordable housing does exist in apartments as well.
Sure.
But we're talking about mobile home parks today. And I will tell you, there are some incredible opportunities in mobile home parks. Now, of course, when he's talking about home ownership, he's talking about that person that's in the affordable space buying the mobile home. And of course, then they're going to pay lot rent to whoever owns the mobile home park.
Yes. And so I'm going to finish at that thought process there. And so they're living in a mobile home park. They have the ability of home ownership. There's lots of creative ways out there. Like in our parks, we do, easy qualifying rent to own programs where they can basically pay over a period of time and own that home free and clear between 3 and maybe 10 years at the most. But most of the time it's 3 to 5 years. And so after they own that home, now they're just paying lot rent. And the average lot rent across the country, I mean, obviously there's some areas that are probably $800-900 a month, and there's some areas that are, $150 a month. But the average across the board is between $300 and $350 a month. There is nowhere in any remotely attractive place in this country that you could live for $300 or $350 a month in terms of like
some of these
renting a
homes
place.
Some of these homes are 3-bedroom, 2-bath.
Exactly.
And you're paying $300 to $350 a month to live there.
You might be able to rent a room in a boarding house for $300 a month, but you're not gonna be able to live with your family. And so, So I guess you asked me why I like it, and that's one of the big reasons. We got talking about like a recession and downturn. Like I like it because I think it thrives in a market like we're in today. I can tell you that our occupancy rate is like 97% across the board. I mean,
any market, mobile home parks are a safe bet, which is why I've got my spotlight on them as well. So I know they have a bad rap, and I want to talk about the bad rap right now. People think mobile home parks and jokes like if you mess with me, you mess with the whole mobile home park and that, but they have a bad rap in some cases. Now there are some that are the dregs, just like any D-class property. There are some that are hell on earth, but that's not the norm. So let's talk about that for a minute.
Yeah. So the thing we look for, I mean, we typically buy distressed assets, Rod. And so a lot of times we do buy stuff that has bad reputations. They've got that negative stigma attached to them. But the thing we look for is we buy them in markets that are surrounded by good. Because if you've got bad in a concentrated area, but it's surrounded by good, that means if you get rid of the bad, you've got good people to pick from to pull them back in. And typically we're looking for things that have distress like that because we know we can turn them around, and we know after our market research, we know that there's a demand for that affordable housing. And so we might deal with a bad element for a period of time, but we can quickly get them out. Again, we've done our homework and our due diligence. We know that there's good people around that want that housing, that there's a demand for that housing from good, hardworking folks. And so again, temporarily we'll work with the bad people, get the bad eggs out, but typically not a big deal. I mean, at the end of the day, with the parks that we own, we don't own 5-star parks that have shuffleboard courts and 3 swimming pools and palm tree lined streets.
Right. Like the age type, and here in Florida, we've got that. We've got parks that truly are, frankly, on caliber with A-class investments. They're that nice.
That's lifestyle living. That's a lifestyle choice.
Exactly. And we don't, guys, we're not interested in those, just so you know. Those are institutional owners. Those are big money. We're talking right now about your working class parks.
Yes.
Now, let me ask you a question, Kevin. And I love your analogy where you've got this park that hasn't been managed well. So there may be drugs, there may be some bad eggs in there. But if you look around and the community's nice, you've got the opportunity to take that and turn it around. But let me ask you this. Let's say this is digressing a little bit or drilling in a little bit. Let's say you've got somebody that owns their home in that park, and you know that there's a problem with that person. How can you get them out?
Yeah, every state's different with eviction laws, but we have evicted people. Let me back up a little bit. Typically, most of the parks we take over don't have annual leases in place. Most of the time, they literally haven't had a lease re-signed, especially on those that own their homes. The owner hasn't re-signed leases for years and years. And so it's essentially a month to month. So depending on that particular state.
So you just terminate the lease?
So we just do a non-renewal. We just do a non-renewal. But then if they don't leave, then you typically, if you do a non-renewal of the lease and they don't leave, then you have to go still through the eviction process. Right. Every state's a little different. All the states that we own in currently, it's a pretty simple process to where we basically evict them out of the home. The judge will give them a certain period of time to move the home, a couple of weeks. Most of the time they can't move it. And basically they abandon it. And then we go through an abandoned title process, which can take anywhere between 6 weeks and 6 months, depending on the state. But a lot of times it doesn't get to that point. That's literally happened to us one time where we've literally, we tried to, the guy lived there forever. I'm like, look, let us buy it from you, make it easy, give us a title. We're evicting you. And he just ignored us. And so now we just got the title back. It's been sitting there empty for 4 months. And
so you got it for free. You basically got the home for free. It
cost us about $800 to go through the process.
But still.
But we would have rather bought. So like what I'm getting at is typically what happens is if someone's really in dire straits and they can't make up that $300 a month payment, or they're a pain in the ass and you know, like we need to get them out of there. We'll just offer to pay them for their home, you know, not much, but we'll give them something to move on, give us the title. That way we can go in and rehab it right away and get it sold again. That's our preference. So
let me back up again. So let's say you find this park that's in the tough area, and the area is good, but the park itself needs work. So I would guess that the work here is really front loaded. Once you turn that thing around and you've got management in place, then it really is not as big a deal to manage any longer. Is that an accurate statement?
Yeah, to a certain extent. I mean, the management is the big key component there, your on-site manager. What we've found is that we'll go in and we'll front load, do a lot of work, clean up any deferred maintenance, force our rules on the residents that live there, make them fix their skirting, make them wash the outside, make them paint the roof, clean up the 5 tires they have laying next to their home, the broken down cars. But if it doesn't stay, if the manager doesn't do a good job of monitoring that stuff, it gets out of control very quickly again.
Okay.
So there is a little bit of a big brother, big sister component that has to take place. And so I have found that we've got a few managers that do a really good job at it and a few that do a terrible job, and that we basically have to micromanage that manager. Okay. They're good at everything else, but they're really bad about keeping on the residents. And a lot of that, I think, is a result of all of our managers live in the community, and I think they become friends with people.
Sure.
They never want to be the bad guy.
They don't want to. Yeah, no, I get it.
So you kind of outweigh the good with the bad. Like we have a manager in our North Carolina park. I was just up there a month ago, saw, literally like at least 15 homes that had major infractions, gave her heck about it. And it's fixed now. It's good. We're good to go. But I'm going to have to stay on her a little bit tighter than what I was. But she's lived in that park for 9 years, but she does everything else great. Her collections are phenomenal. So,
I got
take
it.
the good with the bad, and I'll keep her.
Okay. So I know that, when you're looking at parks, you'll find parks where all the homes on the park are owned by the individual people, and that would be all lot rent, it would be called. And then you'll find parks that maybe the park owns all or some of the homes. Now, what is your strategy if you find a park where the park owns all or some of the homes?
Yeah, so our strategy is to, first and foremost.
And hold on. Let me add one thing there. Yeah. So basically what that means, guys, is if the park owns the homes, then they're just renting them like they were an apartment, for example.
It's a horizontal apartment complex.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, all right. So when you encounter that, it can have the appearance that this park is bringing in a ton of revenue, and I want you to talk to what's on the flip side of that, which I'm going to let you speak to it because I know it, but I want to have you explain it.
I'll hit the first question that you had about what we do, like what our plan is going in. We don't like rental homes.
Right.
We're not opposed to buying a park that has rental homes. We bought a couple parks that have had 100% rental homes, which isn't the preference, but if you buy them right and you've got a plan that you can execute, it can work out. It's a lot of work, but it can work out. The big plan is to convert to a tenant-owned home community, meaning that we want to sell every single one of those rentals and convert them, whether it be the residents that are living them now or non-renewing leases, and bringing in people that are going to buy those homes that want to buy the home and actually rent the lot, because we find that the turnover is much less when they actually own a home. They've got a pride of ownership. They're a little bit more involved in the community versus just being a transient renter that's going to come and go every couple of months.
And you don't have maintenance expenses,
which
are very, very high in mobile homes.
Well, it's a lower end clientele. Some are worse than others, but it's kind of the difference of like an A class and a C- class. The tenant base is just typically harder on the unit.
And if you guys, those of you that are listening that have owned single family homes in C- or D areas, this. It's the same thing. They don't take great care of the properties. The yards go, the water will leak forever, and they don't care. And so the same dynamic occurs. And that's why it's such a huge advantage to convert these parks to lot rent, all lot rent, sell those homes. And then it's a very stable, much easier to manage. I mean, you're really then just managing the rent collection, and you're taking care of the common areas. I mean, that's it then. And enforcing the fact that they take care of their homes and don't turn them into trash dumps,
Yep.
So what do you feel like are the unique benefits to mobile home parks that don't exist in other asset classes? I know we've touched on some of them. Obviously, the fact that they outperformed other assets during the crash, the fact that there's always going to be a need for that asset, for that type of housing. In fact, there's a huge crisis in this country with affordable housing, period. But are there any other unique benefits?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot.
Okay.
Let's name a couple of them. Number one, it's the only commercial asset type that has a diminishing supply. In fact, it's the only real estate asset type that has a diminishing supply. They're being taken away faster than they're being built. In fact, I don't know how, I don't keep track, but as of a couple of years ago, there were only like maybe 3 or 4 built a year. And most of those were probably higher end lifestyle type communities, not the type of parks we buy. And so a lot of these parks that were built 50, 60 years ago, back when maybe that piece of land didn't have much value, it was outside of town. Now it's inside of town and it's got a higher and better use. So you'll find that a lot of these parks, the older ones, are in the path of progress and are being torn down. So that's a barrier to entry. Number one, we don't have to worry about new developers buying a plot of land down the road from us and building a new park
and competing.
So we don't have to worry about that. So that's nice. And, just if you could compare apples to apples, which is hard to do. So if you had a 2.5 star mobile home park, which is probably the equivalent of a C+ class apartment building, let's say it was the same size, same market, again, hard to do an apples to apples comparison, but if you could, then you probably see that you could expect probably a 2 to 3 point yield premium, meaning like a return. So if you're going to buy the apartment at a 6.5 cap, you could probably buy that same park at a 9.5 cap. And so the returns are significantly higher. Again, it all depends on how you buy it. I see people overpay for mobile home parks, just like I see them overpay for apartment buildings.
But overall, you see that disparity.
To apples, yes,
right.
Yes.
I got it, and I can see this. Some people think it's a much better quality of life. You've got yard, you've got your own space. You're not right next to somebody.
You want to put Christmas lights out. You want to put flowers in the front yard. You want to put build a Florida room on your unit. Absolutely, put a deck outside, grill.
Right.
Everything.
Things you absolutely can't do in an apartment complex. So, I mean, there are big advantages. And a lot of people, because of the stigma, they think negatively about these parks, but some of these parks are absolutely beautiful. And you can take one that's run down, like you said, and turn it into something you can be very proud of.
Yeah. And, a couple more things real quick I want to hit on, right, is the turnover rate is extremely low. I mean, this is assuming they own their own home, right? And which is our goal. If we go in and we want to convert any rental units into resident and owned homes, but once they own their home, that is the most valuable asset they have. So that's first and foremost. So the turnover rate is very low because now they really can't go anywhere else other than another mobile home park because they're just paying lot rent. So there's nowhere they could go to live cheaper, less expensively than what they're living. And now there's a unique caveat that goes along with that.
Right.
You don't have to worry about necessarily moving to another mobile home park because it's very expensive to move these homes. I mean, a single wide trailer costs between about $3,000 and $4,000 to move it, but that doesn't include the cost of actually setting it back up, blocking it, tying it down, leveling it, skirting it again. You're talking literally $7,000, $8,000
to move a home.
Well, not the moving part's not that expensive, $3,000 or $4,000.
But all in, $7,000,
$8,000. It's very expensive
to take your home from one park to another park. So, guys, you raise the rents. They've really got to think about whether or not they want to move because, I mean, obviously you don't want to do that in a nefarious way, but.
So I'll give you an example of that. You make a good point. So we bought a park in North Carolina. The market rents in that area, there were a couple of parks that were $250 a month. The park we were buying was at $165. Okay. So you're talking about a $95 or $85. Yeah, $85 difference there. That's a big number. I mean, that's basically a 50% increase over what they're used to paying, right?
So hold on, just so I get these numbers, because I want to share this with my listeners, and I want to actually show them what the increase in cap rate is, or if you can, I've got a calculator.
Yeah, I can do the math here for
you.
All right,
but anyway, so how many units was it?
So it was a 52 space park.
52, and the rent spread was?
The rents were $165 when we bought.
Okay.
And within 3 months, we raised them to $250.
You raised them to $250. So what is that difference?
That's $85.
$85 times 52. Okay.
And that's all day, every day, a 9-cap park in that market. And I'm being conservative when I say that because it's surrounded by $250,000 homes everywhere.
Okay. And that
So in 3 months, we added 600 grand of value.
$600,000 in value in 3 months, guys.
And so here's the unique part about that. That was the biggest rental increase we've ever done in terms of proportionally speaking.
And there were probably a lot of unhappy people paying a big increase like that.
What we did is the rent letter that we sent out. Number one, we did improvements first in the park. Went and fixed the roads, cleaned up the place, got rid of the idiots that were living in there. And so we made improvements before we actually increased their rents. And so, But when we sent out the rent increase letter, we also included the other competitor parks in the area, their addresses, their phone numbers, and what they charge for lot rent. And just basically made it very clear to them that, hey, consider this we didn't say this, but in other words, consider this a gift. You received a gift for the past 10 years because your previous owner just never raised your rents. Now we're just bringing it to market. We're not gouging. You might think but we're not gouging. We're just bringing it to what everyone else, all your friends that live in the other communities, that's what they're paying.
So what was the end result?
We didn't lose a person.
No kidding.
We didn't lose a single person. We lost a trailer a couple months ago, but they got a piece of land given to them from a family member, and they moved their trailer to a plot of land. So we've never lost anyone. Because here's the thing. You might get people that grumble and moan and whine about that, but if they wanted to try to prove their point and move their trailer and go to the neighboring park that was also $250 a month,
right?
They're never gonna recapture that expense of moving that trailer.
What's the point? I mean,
even if it was cheaper by $30 a month, they'll never recapture that. Yeah,
even if it was $100 a month, frankly, it doesn't equate out to. It doesn't equate. Okay, so if somebody's interested in looking at parks, what do you recommend as, say, out of state? Obviously not in your backyard. Let's say you're buying a park out of state. What's the minimum size you'd consider? And maybe size is the wrong question. Maybe it should be based on income. It goes
income and size. Yeah, but you both kind of look at them equally as much. But I mean, for us, that number keeps going up a little bit, only because we just got some different infrastructure in place now, and we got to be a little more selective with what we buy and where it is. And so now, our minimum, I think it's probably about 60 spaces now.
60. Okay. What was it before?
Probably 40. 40 is about the norm. Although we do own one park that it's our smallest park, it's 35 spaces, and it's one of the best performers. So although that wouldn't be on our radar today, but it kicks butt. I mean, it's an incredible deal that most people could take down. Anyone that's a new investor could have taken that one down with how much it costs us to buy it. So I think it depends. So that 35 space park, Rod, that I'm telling you about, you mentioned something about should you look at the size of number of spaces or the income rents it produces? Right. So that one, it's in Atlanta. So the lot rent's $350 a month. I mean, although it's only 35 spaces, it's got really high lot rents with it. And so that
you
one
support some infrastructure.
We got a full-time manager.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what you really need to look for. You need to look for, do I have the ability to be able to afford an on-site manager, give them free housing, pay them a salary, and get someone of quality. You get what you pay for, right? And so that's one of the big considerations of the size of the park. But also, if it's far away, you've got to look at how much income does it really produce? Forget about cash-on-cash returns at this point in time. How much money, after all the expenses and debt service, what does that dollar amount actually look like? I don't care if it's 100% cash-on-cash return if that's only $2,000 a year, right?
Right.
Because one trip to that park, an airplane ride and a hotel and some food can completely wipe out your NOI for the year. And so those are the considerations that you really need to have based, to determine the size that you should be looking for and the overall price point that you need to be buying in. So, but 40 spaces is what I recommend to people that are looking to buy their first park. It might be a little smaller. I mean, if you're looking at 10 space parks and 15 space parks, I don't think it's a very smart play.
That's not a good move, guys.
Well, the challenge is even one major capital expense item, let's say a septic tank goes on a 40 space park, it's kind of just a blip on the P&L, but on a 10 space park, it's catastrophic. I mean, it literally could be your NOI for the entire year. And then on the flip side of that, the other thing to consider with a small park is they're very hard to finance. And so you got to think about your exit strategy, who's going to be your end buyer. Always think about your exit when you go in. So who the heck's going to buy that from you? It's going to be some small time local schmo investor that probably needs you to finance it. Bank's not going to finance it. And so buy something bigger. You get the scales of economy. You get to get some on-site quality management in place. And then you've got a better exit as well because you're going to have more sophisticated buyers lining up to purchase your asset from you.
Agreed. Now, guys, I don't want you to think that the buying criteria is the same as an apartment complex because it's not. There are some specific nuances that you need to pay attention to. And I think probably the biggest one is the utilities because some of these old parks have some very, I'm going to use the word unique water and sewage systems. And some of them are very dated And particularly in the sewage side, well, even the water side, both.
Yeah.
If you have to replace them or hook up to county water and sewer, or if the sewage system goes out, you could have a real problem. So let's talk about that for a little bit.
Yeah, that's the biggest catch. People ask me, like, what's the one big thing? Like, what's the one gotcha in this business? And I mean, there's multiple, but like, that's the big one. Like you make a mistake on the front end doing your due diligence and you don't account for a potential infrastructure failure, whether it be a water system or a sewer system or both.
Or maybe even electrical in some remote.
Yeah,
you even see that sometimes.
Absolutely.
Very, very dated electric that just can't handle air conditioners anymore, because some of these parks are literally 60, 70 years old. Is that
absolutely?
Is that
yeah, I mean 40s and 50s. Yeah,
right.
Yeah, probably like 60s and 70s is the more common. Like that was like the 2 decades where like a majority were built. But yeah, there's some that date back to the 40s.
Right, and if they haven't updated, Anyway, continue.
Yeah. So the utility infrastructure. I mean, you got 2 ends of the spectrum. You got, city supplied water and sewer. And then you've got, on the other end of the spectrum, you got private, meaning like a well and then a private sewer system, which either could be septic tanks. It could be a lagoon system, which is basically a big like cesspool of, feces.
Sewage, right. And I just looked at a park. I just looked at a park in the middle of Florida here. That's what it was. It was two of these lakes. They look like lakes, but trust me, you don't want to swim in them.
Yeah, no, you wouldn't want to do that. And then you got package plants or well, which are basically just a miniature version of like what our local counties and cities use to, to
sewage
treat
system
the
plant,
sewage
treatment plant, right?
Yep. And so, you got to be careful with those things. I mean, we could go really deep here. I don't want to.
Right. No, I don't want to go deep. I just want to flag
But I want to give an
that.
example. I want to give an example because it's a great example. It's a park we own. We did our due diligence. We knew all the potential hazards that existed with it. It's on public water, but it's a private sewer system. It's a large septic system that feeds this entire park. Okay. And so that basically means that it's not one septic tank per home, to where one septic tank goes out, you've only got one home down. This is if that septic system fails, the entire park has no water.
Send their sewage. You're out of commission. Right.
Yeah. So we did our due diligence. We did our phase 1 inspections. We had a septic company come out and inspect the septics. We would not have bought the park if we didn't have the backup plan of county sewer being at the front of the park. So we knew that ahead of time. We did we got a hold of engineers, got the estimate of cost of what it was going to cost us should the day come when we have to connect into it, what the tap fees were going to be.
If the septic went out, you guys, if you're doing this, you go out and you find out what it's going to cost to connect to the sewer system. You have to hire engineers. You have to have plumbing bids. It's all the different components.
We factored that in, and we said, we just let's go ahead and assume that it's going to happen in the first 5 or 10 years. So like this is a big ticket item. So let's assume that risk on the front, and that's what's going to be part of our negotiations. Like we don't know too much about the septic. We do know that the county will not let us fix the septic. We know that for a fact. They won't let us fix it. They won't let us put a new leach field in. And so like we're in a big pickle. And so like there's a lot of risk here, because if we have to incur the $300,000 it was going to cost us to connect to the city sewer in the first 10 years, anytime in the first 10 years, it was going to be a big hit. And so we used all that in our negotiations, and we assumed very little risk. We only put 10% down. We only paid $200,000 for the park. We got it for next to nothing. We didn't sign any guarantors in the loan. And guess what happened?
What?
3 months into this deal, I get a call, my cell phone. The DEP called me, inspector from DEP called me and said, Mr. Bupp, at the back of your park here at, whatever street it is. And I'm walking around, you've got some gray water that is being shot out in the back of your property into the neighboring farm. It's 2 6-inch PVC pipes. I'm like, what are you talking about? I have no idea. We got inspection. I don't know. He's like, well, I followed up to where it would probably lead to, and it leads right to it seems like your septic field. And as we dug deeper and inspected, we realized that the owner at some point in time probably had a failure in the leach system. The county had been pressuring him to connect, and he said, no, I got it fixed. And they never inspected or
he just
did any
stuck
further
a
research.
Pipe in there to get a little more leach field.
No, he stuck the pipe into the side of the tank, so like it never even made it to the leach field. So all the gray water was actually going out in the back of the property.
Wow.
And so we're like, okay, well. So we debated at that point, should we walk away from this thing? Like, here's what we have into it. And, or because the guy's like, you need to cap this. We said, well, if we cap that, we got 1 day of capacity, and we'd have to pump, there's 5 tanks there. We'd have to pump all 5 tanks every day. And it would cost us literally $1,000 a day to pump these. And to go from point A to point Z on getting connected to the city, like dealing with engineering and all that, it's like an 8-month process. So it's not quick. It doesn't happen overnight. But again, we assumed our risk on the front end, and we knew that going into this thing, we knew that was there. We knew there was a skeleton in the closet that was going to,
what's the end result?
Yeah. So now we are, we've got probably the best environmental attorney in the area. Has been incredible. And for whatever reason, DEP, they know that we're making progress. We're working with a state-run. It's a
so you've got it under control. And
it's a funding program. Yeah. Okay. So, but they're not bringing down our necks. They literally could shut us down right now.
So guys, let's bottom line this, because I know we went real deep on this particular instance, but the reason I wanted to highlight it is because if you do get into this space, for one, I highly recommend that you get Kevin's course. Kevin has just created a course. I have seen it. It is, if you're interested in mobile home parks, there is nothing like it on the market. I mean, Kevin and I personally attended other people's courses, and this thing is 10 times better than that. So we'll have the contact information for that in the show notes for sure if you're interested in that business. But that is probably the biggest red flag is to watch out for. And Kevin goes into exhaustive detail about what to do and what to look for.
But if you can get good at identifying those problems and you can be the fixer, like I knew what the problem was.
Right.
And when we're done connecting, like the thing is going to be very valuable when we're done connecting. I mean, the park, conservatively speaking, will easily be worth $800,000-$900,000. We'll have 500 into it.
Okay.
And so, and it will be, and we got really low debt. I mean, the first is a 30-year amortization, 10-year balloon, 5% interest rate fixed. So
and you were able to negotiate that because the owner didn't know how to fix the problem. And guys, in real estate, period, you are a problem solver, period, as it relates to apartments as well. But the only way you can be the problem solver is with the knowledge. So please don't listen to this podcast and go off half-cocked and buy a mobile home park. Get the knowledge, either learn from Kevin or educate yourself, because it is different than apartments. So how do you find parks that are for sale?
We typically go off market. So we go direct to owners. We've spent many years now building a pretty thorough database. We've analyzed hundreds of markets in the country based on job growth, based on population, based on demand for what we see as the demand for affordable housing there. And we basically build our own internal database of those parks, who the owners are, what their home phone numbers are, their mailing addresses. And that's how we get 90% of our parks. We do have one in contract right now that was an actual listed park. But actually, I think we've only ever bought this park. We buy it, and then one other one that was listed. So all the rest have been off-market deals. Direct to owners. So
that's what you have to do, guys. And that's what you have to do in this market in apartments as well. You have to set up a system to find off-market deals, be it mailing, be it outbound calls, be it looking places other people aren't looking.
Well, the challenge is if you're not willing to do that, then once it makes the market, everyone's in this kind of market, everyone's willing to pay a little bit more than you are. Okay, You're willing to get a 7% return. You know what? I'd be happy with a 6.25% return. So everyone's always willing to pay a little bit more. You don't want that competition. Once it hits the broad marketplace, forget about it. I mean, it's just, you're not going to get a good deal. You're going to pay full retail, if not above retail.
No, I completely agree. Well, listen, I want to bring something else to my listeners' attention, because I know you guys have heard me talk about my Tiny Hands Foundation, and we've fed 50,000 children for the holidays. We've done thousands of backpacks filled with school supplies to children here. We've done thousands of teddy bears to the local police departments. And I have to publicly thank my friend Kevin Bupp, who has raised, I'm guessing, around $60,000 for my foundation, maybe more, over the last several years. Kevin does a bike ride called 72 Hours to Key West, where he rides from Fort Myers, Florida, all the way down to Key West. It's an incredible experience, number one. I think it's coming up pretty soon, isn't it?
November.
Yeah. And so, guys, if you're a cyclist, this thing is extraordinary. You're riding across those bridges between the Keys. Is this the fourth year?
No, this is the 6th or 7th year.
60. Oh, then you've raised,
yeah.
So I mean, so thank you.
I think it's the 7th year. Yeah, the 7th year.
Wow.
Yeah.
So anyway, but my message here, guys, is you've heard me talk about the difference between success and fulfillment, and I know many people that are millionaires, even billionaires, that are unhappy because they're unfulfilled. Kevin has embraced fulfillment and contribution, and I hope those of you listening do the same thing. Even if it's not as big a project, it can grow into as big as what Kevin has done and what I've done. But Start now. I don't care if you're in your 20s, start now. Get in a habit of giving back. Get in a habit of caring about your community, because I promise you it comes back to you tenfold. It's, it's cliche. People say it happens. It absolutely happens. So anyway, I just publicly want to thank you, my friend.
Oh, thank you, Rod.
Yeah,
I'm glad to be a part of everything you're doing, man.
Thanks.
You kick ass. So
thank you, buddy.
Yeah, I'm honored.
Thank you, buddy. No, it's been a great relationship and friendship, and it's awesome to see that the value that you're adding with that incredible course you put together for mobile home park investing. Guys, check him out at Real Estate Investing for Cash Flow. And what was the name of the mobile home park one?
Just the Mobile Home Park Investing Podcast.
Yeah,
so
I mean, they're the number ones. You put in mobile home park,
Yeah.
You'll see him on iTunes or Stitcher or wherever you search him.
You can search by my name and you can find the podcast there as well.
That's
But
right.
yeah, they're pretty easy to find.
Right. And tons of value, not selling anything, just tons of value. So highly recommend that. Thanks for being on the show, my friend.
Thanks, Rod. Appreciate it, bud.
Absolutely. All right. Take care, man.
Thank you for listening to the Lifetime Cash Flow Through Real Estate Investing podcast. If you've enjoyed the show, please subscribe and then take a moment to visit iTunes and leave a 5-star rating and review. For more resources to connect with us further, please visit our website at lifetimecashflowpodcast.com. Tune in next week for our next show.